Good afternoon. I'm Dara Bunjon. I'm the food enthusiast here at J Moore Living. I'm a food writer, food stylist, PR maven, and a frustrated baker. Those of you joining us live, drop your questions into the comment box and I will check from time to time. You'll see me turn my head. I want to welcome our sponsor, the Pearlstone Center. Pearlstone offers environmentally friendly full-service hospitality. Their beautiful facilities and natural surroundings create the optimal setting for memorable events and group gatherings. Our guest today is Emmanuel Laroche, author of the new book, Conversations Behind the Kitchen Door. 50 American chefs chart today's food culture, and he is also the founder and host of the podcast Flavors Unknown. Let's welcome Emmanuel.
Hello, Dara. How are you?
I am fine. I'm fine.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining me. I know you've been very, very busy because your book was just released on the 8th and you're busy selling books and doing live shows. So thank you for squeezing us in.
Absolutely. No, it's a pleasure.
So what's on your plate other than my show today? What's on your plate today?
Mice on my plate today. In fact, I just finished my lunch plate. I decided to eat like before, the show. But otherwise, it's my day job. So I'm in charge of marketing for a company that manufactures flavors for the food and the beverage industry. So, that's what took me busy from 7 o'clock this morning until, now. So jumping to your on your show.
The company's called Symrise, isn't it?
Symrise, S-Y-M.
Symrise. Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Tell us a little bit more about that, and then we're going to get into, obviously, that accent isn't a Southern United States accent.
I thought that I was from maybe Texas or, South Jersey.
No. So you're the VP of marketing for Symrise. It's a flavor company.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about that and what that does and how that introed you into the people here in the country.
So I am in this space of flavors, which is not really well known from the consumers. Something that I discovered at the end of my studies in France, as you say, the accent and the name obviously comes from France. I've been 20 years in the US now, but so I studied organic chemistry and then an MBA focusing on marketing. And to validate my MBA, I had to turn an internship, and I got an internship into a flavor company in Grasse, who is the hub of fragrance and flavors, in France. And I fell in love with the industry so much that I'm still in that industry today, after like 30 years. And this is companies that are manufacturing and extracting, natural flavors or extracts, from product like vanilla, product like citrus, product like onion, for instance, concentrating it and after that, selling it to food and beverage manufacturers in order to integrate that in their brands. So I love that. I love that industry, and it's really always innovative, new. I work with people manufacturing beverage, people manufacturing chips, snacks, sauces, ice cream, and every day is different. And it keeps me in contact with, the food trends, and it allows me to combine, I would say, my background, scientific background, and as well my passion for food.
Well, you have the MBA, you have the science background, but you must also have the nose.
Yeah, the nose and the taste buds too. So all this evaluation is an important aspect. It's not a requirement, but as I am in charge as well of our sensory team, there's a lot of evaluation where we learn how to describe different tastes, and how to. That's a let's say, defining a language, how to describe what we are tasting. So yeah, it's important.
It's sort of like wine. What are you tasting in the wine?
Mm-hmm.
What are you smelling in the wine?
In fact, I sometimes annoy as well people. It's very interesting. I mean, something that I'm really passionate about, but it means as well that if I go to a restaurant, I am going to look into the menu in details, and all my friends or family, I'm like, okay, move on, because I want to focus on something that I don't know, flavor associations, that are new to me.
Right.
And then when I'm tasting, I'm always trying to describe, trying to figure out, what's the chef I wanted to do, what they had in mind, what was their source of inspiration. So people say, just have fun, enjoy having a good meal. But I like to analyze things. So.
Right. So I want to go back to, you're from Versailles,
mm-hmm.
Where
born in, yeah.
Yes, born there, raised there, near the Louis the 16th.
The 14th, yes.
The 14th, I'm
yes.
sorry.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
I put something down wrong. Louis the 14th Chateau. I was there.
Mm-hmm.
It was a cold, raw November day,
oh,
and
wow.
It was raining.
Wow, yeah.
But growing up in France, your mother was a great cook. You started cooking or baking when you were 6. What was the first thing you made?
Oh, it was the first thing my mother told me was what we call in France, if I translate it, like a yogurt cake. And it's easy for a kid because you're using the yogurt, pot as a measurement, like for the unit. And then, this is what you use to measure your flour, everything, sugar, and so on. And so that's, if I remember, the first things I did. And then she told me, and then very soon after, I think I was maybe 7 or 8, she told me how to make the quiche Lorraine, because she was from the Lorraine region. So she was very much into specific ingredients to be used in the quiche Lorraine. And yeah, that's how I started. So I learned how to make the crust, from scratch. And it's still funny today, because when I have people at home, and I always make, quiches, either the quiche Lorraine or variation from it. And people said, have you done the crust? And I'm like, this is so easy to do. Yes, I've made the crust. I know how to make it since, I was 8. So yes.
Well, it's sort of like pasta. If you're good at crust, you know the feel, you know what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And, and making homemade pasta, it's knowing the texture that you want, that it's smooth and it's ready. Did you ever consider, I mean, you've interviewed more than 50 chefs, and we're definitely going to get into that. And I want to show people, before I forget, Conversations Behind the Kitchen Door. And that is out now. Did you ever consider being a chef, or did you want to be a chef?
I don't know if it even came about. And I mean, I was raised in a French family with my dad was a French, Greek, and Latin, professor. So it was very much like kind of like intelligentsia, things in France. And I would say blue collar job was not really welcome, and I'm talking about, like, I mentioned in the book, I was born in 63. So we are talking about like the 70s. And I don't think my parents, would have loved to see me going into a blue collar job. Things have changed dramatically when it comes to, the position of a chef nowadays compared to, what it was then. But I always loved food. And I had and maybe my mom probably knew too much about it, because her brother had a restaurant and a hotel in one of the northeast region of France. And maybe, seeing how tough and, hard that life was, probably she never really, that was not really part of the discussion, at home.
Okay. But was it in your heart?
Yes, it is. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I love that place, and I really have a profound respect for, people that are, in the kitchen, could be chefs or pastry chefs, and as well, behind the bar. It's a very difficult job, and a tough environment. And people that are going to restaurants or having a drink at a bar, obviously it is about having a good time on your own or sharing with others, but a lot of people don't really realize what it means behind the door.
I think the restaurant industry is the second largest employer next to the government in the United States. I think. We don't rely on this memory too well, but I believe so. I want to talk about some of the table contents and tell people so they have an idea.
Sure.
Chapter 1, the making of a chef. Chapter 2, the flavor memory database. Farmers, foraging, roadside riches. A mosaic of cultures. Creative decisions. Beyond French technique. The kitchen as a metaphor for life. There's quite a bit covered, and you spoke with over 50 chefs across the country. Now that the book is out and Flavors Unknown, and I want to tell people the website flavorsunknown.com. You can go and listen to all the interviews that Emmanuel had, and there's also a link to go in and find 20 recipes from these chefs. And if you get the book, even simpler, he has QR codes in here and a link to the cookbook.
I really wanted to have like something interactive with the book, and that was something important for me talking to the publisher or with the publisher, in order to have things that will bring back to the podcast, and so or as well being able to download, as you mentioned, a guide of the booklets of recipes that some of those chefs shared with me.
Yeah. Why, most people might look at this and saying, well, okay, and it is a great handbook for those considering going into the culinary field. But why is it a great book for the home cook?
Sure. I think that, if you are a home cook, you are passionate about food, and you are curious about the stories, from those individuals that are make maybe like the dishes or the drinks that you love. And I think this is what, a big part of book is about, telling stories and sharing stories from the 50 plus chefs that I've kept, for the book. Sharing some of my own experience, as I do more than 60 tastings a year. So that's I think that the food enthusiast is going to learn a lot about how to have access to quality ingredients, how to approach maybe food when you are traveling. Same thing as well is the idea that you should not be shy in a kitchen. Some people sometimes are not comfortable. They feel that if they try different things, they are going to fail. Not a big deal, And I think that this book is telling people that they can experiment, in the kitchen, and they have access to a lot of ingredients in the US, that they should really experiment. And I mentioned, like, you were talking about the quiche Lorraine before, and I mentioned that example just to show how easy it could be. So if someone knows, for instance, a recipe that they are very comfortable with, it's easy to substitute ingredients or elevate ingredients with more noble or more luxury ingredients. So I take this example of the quiche, and quickly, when I was writing the book, in less than 10 minutes, I'm like, okay, what are the ideal things I can do? I have traveled, in different parts of the world. How can I maybe inject maybe some some taste and ingredients from the northern part of Europe, from Scandinavia. Or I relate a story about white truffle, how do I bring white truffle into a quiche? Or I had a conversation with pastry chef Antonio Bachour, on one of my interviews, and he mentioned something great that during the beginning of the pandemic, he has created like a quiche and using the croissant, as the crust. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to steal that idea. I'm going to try it at home. Another one is I went to my son and I talked about our experience traveling in Japan. And obviously the okonomiyaki, which is the pancake, from Japan, which is very popular. I did a kind of a quiche and a okonomiyaki hybrid. So that's what I mean, that you can be very confident, in the kitchen, and people can experiment.
Right. I want to go back to 2015 because I think that was a pivotal year for you and aligning your business, Simrise, with Star Chefs.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And just to explain to people, Star Chefs is a conference for chefs where they share ideas, and it's a notch above what might be American Chefs Association conference. This is in New York. It's all the top chefs. They come in from Europe and they do panels. And you aligned Simrise with Star Chefs. And how did that work for you? And what were the benefits?
Yeah, of course. So as you mentioned, Star Chef, it's really a marketing agency for chef, and they celebrate culinary scene, the American culinary scene around the country. So what you highlighted was the International Chef Congress that stopped just before, at the time of the pandemic, and they haven't brought it back. But they have as well great events around the country. It's called Rising Star, and they celebrate and award different part of the country. So it's not really New York centric. I'm going there, in fact, in a few days in San Francisco. That will be the last one of the year. But this year I've been to New Orleans, I've been to Denver, Washington, D.C., I think. So we choose to align and work with them, and it's an exclusive partnership that we have with them at Simrise, is the idea that it allows us to bring some of our customers to what's going on, and the front seat on the culinary trends, and looking at what's bubbling, in different parts of the country when it comes to new food, new ingredients, new drinks, new dessert, idea. And during those sessions and days, I have the chance as well to moderate panel discussions, with a few of those culinary leaders. And that's how I got the bug of having those conversations. And those conversations are very much focused on the Simrise business and flavors and trends. But I always wanted to continue the dialogue with those individuals. And that's the reason why I created the podcast in 2018, to have more in-depth conversation with people from that industry.
As always, I get carried away with my guests. I need to announce that our sponsor, Pearlstone Center, has a short film for you, and we will return to our interview with Emmanuel Laroche in 15 seconds.
Pearlstone Conference and Retreat Center offers environmentally friendly, full-service, farm-to-table hospitality. Our beautiful facilities and natural surroundings make the optimal setting for memorable events and group gatherings. PearlstoneCenter.org.
And we're back. I had a question come in for you. It says, of all the culinary experiences you've had, which is the most memorable or special? Favorite dish, favorite ingredients?
That's a tough question. So it's funny that that person asked, because while I was writing the book, someone asked me something similar and asked me what was like the one dish that really I liked the most, and I said it's not really fair with all the people that I've interviewed, because I interviewed more than 100. So because of that question, I made an exercise. Like a lot of food enthusiasts, I take pictures of everything that I eat. So I went through like my feed on the phone, and I decided to select like 20 dishes. And I start the first chapter, of the book by mentioning those 20 dishes. So I apologize for the other chefs, that are in the book where maybe not mentioned. It's because some of them I haven't been to their locations. So I try to be fair. So back to if there's one memorable experience. Unfortunately, he has changed locations, so he hasn't restarted those program. But it was with the chef Drew Adams. He was at that time the executive chef at the Four Seasons in Washington, D.C. And he had a program on top of, like the normal things that he was doing on the menu at the restaurant. He had a program called Foraging and Feasting. And I took my younger son. So when I say younger, it's relative. He's like, in 20s. And we went there together, and we spent probably 4 hours in the afternoon near the Potomac River with Chef Andrew Adams. And looking at, it was the springtime. We obviously selected the right time of the year. And there was like a lot of things that we discover, like the pow pow tree that I never heard about pow pow before.
Right.
Of course, a lot of people have, but it was new to me at that time. And we finished, in fact, the day by having a special and unique tasting menu that was 18 different dishes, at his restaurant. It was like really amazing, because like during the conversation that I had with him foraging, I was mentioning that it reminded me of an experience that I had when I was a kid. Always childhood memory comes back, and I was foraging like mushroom with my dad. And it's always something special, because I lost my dad when I was young, almost 12 years old. And I said, our favorite mushroom, and still now my favorite mushroom is morels. So he said, you know what? I have just received like a delivery of morels, in the kitchen at the Four Seasons. So I am going to switch one of the dish, and I'm going to make a special dish for you. So that was something unique. And I think my son, Alexandre, and myself, we will still remember that experience, for the rest of our life.
There was and I want to bring out, culinary isn't just for a restaurant chef. I think the statement in the book was even more ways in the book. You can find even more ways to turn a passion for cooking into a business. And we know a local chef here who's done that, which is Chris Spear, who is in your book, who has his podcast, Chefs Without Kitchens. Fantastic
podcast, yes. Yeah. He's a private chef, and he's doing a fantastic job. And in my field as well, in the company I work for, we have research chefs. So we have laboratories, culinary labs, where we have hired chefs that have to develop specific recipe in order to feature the flavors, in order to showcase that to our customers. There is people working at food trucks. I mean, there's a lot of ways nowadays to be a chef, and with the media and the new technology, you can be a social media chef as well, or chef on TV. You don't have to have a restaurant. So there's a lot of ways to let's say to turn your passion for cooking into a business.
Many chefs cook because mom was a good cook, mom was a terrible cook, or they were going to college and it was a summer job, and they got the bug And to hell with being a lawyer, I'm going to be a chef. That's their passion. Did you find any common thread throughout the chefs that you interviewed? Is there one common thread or a couple that have come forward out of all your interviews?
Related to what? Related to their personality,
why they're still doing it, or why they're passionate about it, or
I think that all of them are they have a strong curiosity for anything that comes to food, and you just mentioned that they come from different fields. Some came from doing other type of studies. Some were into food technologies, or some others were in or played like team sports, and in fact they found like in the cuisine, in the kitchen, sorry, the environment, something similar to what they experienced, when they were in a professional sport team. So there's really a lot of different ways that those people went into the cooking. At one moment, there's what kind of a haha, moment that made them decide, to say, this is what I want to do, later. But all those people, and you're talking about common thread, they have that passion, that curiosity. They have a common, like they have a drive, and then I've seen them like very resilient. I think this is the common elements between all those individuals.
I think after what we've gone through, everybody, and especially the restaurateurs, and how they had to drop back and punt with COVID, and
sure.
how many restaurants we did lose because of COVID. Resilience, ingenuity.
We're going to see that again, in 2023, because of situation with prices and raw materials increase, and unfortunately, it's going to continue to impact the restaurant industry, and we are going to see, outstanding things from chefs that are always going to look for a way, to maybe celebrate, some of those maybe lower, type of cuts, when it comes to proteins, or other type of ingredients, but making sure that the experience of the consumers, is still the best, and continue to make people happy.
So that would be what you would say the trends are. Is there any other trend that we should be looking for from the restaurants?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of trends, going on. The influence of immigration, it's still continue to be strong. There's a lot of influence with Peruvian, at the moment, that we see in the country. Japanese outside of sushi and ramen, influenced by Japanese street food. So we see a lot of this. Plant-based food is very important. And there's a lot of work that is being done by chefs to make sure that the experience of, something 100%, vegetarian is still agreeable, and that make people happy again. We see a lot of things in beverage, in the bar, with sustainability, where bartenders are celebrating spirit companies, or beverage companies that have sustainable processes. So we see a lot of this, and then there's a lot of in terms of desserts, sweets, and we see a lot of influences as well coming from Asia. There's a big influence, with fruit or other ingredients. So that, in a nutshell, there's a lot. There's a lot of trends that we can spend like a whole hour and a half on the top.
Half of that. Well, I just want to remind people to reach Emmanuel. It's flavorsunknown.com, and that is up in the comments section. The book is Conversations Behind the Kitchen Door by Emmanuel, and it's hot off the press. So grab a copy of that. And in listening to your podcast, you end your podcast a very special way. So, I didn't ask you my questions. I'll shorten it because we're running short on time. I always ask these questions at the end of the show.
Okay, tell me.
What advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh, that, I mean, it's easy when you open the door, the page of my book. I dedicate the book to my 3 children, and I think the idea is that don't be afraid, to try. You can do anything that you set your mind to, and I think this is what I wanted to show them, when I did the podcast book. And as well, wrote the book. So always be on the move, always discover new things, so I will say that to myself, if I meet myself, younger, I said, go for it, try, don't be afraid to fail.
Okay. If you woke up tomorrow morning with a new talent, what would that talent be?
I think being able to speak more languages than I do, and because I love communication, with people, and so if I could, turn a switch and speak whatever language needed, that would be something that I would like to have.
What was your best bite this week?
Oh, wow. Best bite this week. Good question. I think that's, I believe, okay, let me think, because I think it was a dish that my friend that I have in the book, his name is Sam Friend, and he has the restaurant. So I live in New Jersey. So in White Birch, in Flanders, New Jersey, he has like a fantastic dish that I have, on the book as well. It's an onion tart, where it is served with, topped with, greens and kind of a vinaigrette, on top of it. And there's pine nuts, and I love that. I love that tarts. And, I went there earlier this week, and I had this, and I in fact brought one back home as well. So.
You must like it. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and what question didn't I ask you that I should have?
Maybe one, which is, in fact, I've done a lot of interviews, but no one really, it's interesting. A lot of people ask me questions like you did around the book, around what I do, around the podcast, but not about like the writing process, because it's, it's my first book. So it was kind of an experience. And I was, maybe you could have asked me questions around like writer blogs and, how do I find inspiration, especially that I wrote the book during the pandemic. So that means that I was sitting where I'm sitting now, for my day-to-day at my, the work I do for the company. But then at the end of the day, trying to find inspiration and switch, to writing the book, that was not that easy. There's a lot of people telling that you need to find, half hour in the morning and write every day. That doesn't work for me. So my process, in fact, in writing was when it was okay to travel, a bit, at least, driving. I went for long weekends from Fridays to Mondays, and take an Airbnb and on my own and just focus on writing. So 5 o'clock in the morning, wake up and write until, 11:30, break for lunch, kind of exploring the area as well from a food standpoint, and then go back to writing, and towards the end of the day. So
that's very interesting. I just recently, I don't really consider myself a writer, but Jay Moore had asked me to write an article on aging gratefully.
Mm-hmm.
And I went sitting there, and I just went, and one morning I sat there and the idea came to me, and I went bump, 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 and it was out. But it's difficult to look at that blank page.
Absolutely.
It really is. I want to get back to what I skipped before.
Mm-hmm.
You close all your shows with this statement, and I love it. And you say, people who like to eat are always the best people. So, Emmanuel, you're one of the best people I've met all week.
Thank you. Yeah, this is from Julia Child, and this is good. And thank you for mentioning it, because I'm not sure that everyone listening to the podcast listened to the last second of each episode. So maybe they haven't heard this. Sometimes people will leave when they hear like the closings. So thank you. I appreciate it.
I thank you so much. Continued success. Maybe our paths will cross at Star Chefs.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll go behind the kitchen door. Conversations. Emmanuel Laroche, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Big moi.
Merci.
Okay, everyone. There will be no show next week due to the holiday. I want to wish everyone a joyous Thanksgiving. I am truly grateful for your continued support of my show over the past 3 years. Always, I can't even read my handwriting here. A ways back, I made a video before I started doing the show. It was women chefs, and I went around with a little flip camera and interviewed all these women chefs, and I said, why food? And they all responded. The answers almost always were very similar, and it is what brings people together. Joining at the table, good food, good conversations. So have a great Thanksgiving. In 2 weeks, our guest will be Jack Goldenberg, the man behind the success of McDonald's Happy Meals. If you need to reach me, you can reach me at my email at food@jmoreliving.com or Instagram. My handle is @DaraCooks. All shows are immediately archived in video form on J More Living's Facebook page and jmoreliving.com's website. Feel free to dig into our video archives of the past show. We truly appreciate it when you share our show with friends and family. And may your plates always remain full. See you in 2 weeks. Thanks for joining us.